Hey guys, welcome back to another repaint video here at the compound. So in one of my recent videos, I did a matching Juvenile and Ankylosaurus to go along with my adult Hammond collection one. And I enjoyed doing that so much that I'm going to keep that matching Juvenile train rolling, and I'm going to paint a Juvenile Parasaur to match the Hammond collection adult. So I'm going to be using the little Parasaur that came with the Roll and Tembo set, but this deco will work on any little Parasaur that you want to use. It doesn't have to be this one. All of the paints and material that I'll be using will be down below in the description box in case you want to go and grab it. To get a close enough match, we will have to mix some different colors together. So we've got a lot of work to do, so let's go ahead and get started. But before we start slinging paint, I wanted to give a quick shout out to an artist I met on Instagram by the name of JT Animated. They sent me some stickers of some seriously cool Jurassic artwork that they drew, and I'm going to add these to the great wall of Jurassic stickers I have here on my workbench. If you're into Jurassic art or you want some more info on these stickers, be sure to check out JT Animated over on Instagram. Link to his profile will be in the description box below. Now, let's start slinging some paint. So sometimes when you're trying to match something, you find a color right out of the bottle and it works perfectly, and then other times there is no color that matches perfectly, and that is the case, unfortunately, for the skin tone on this para. All of the paints that I have in my arsenal, none of them match right out of the bottle. So to get a color close enough to this, we're going to have to mix and test some paint out to try and get a color that's close enough to the skin tone on the Hammond collection one. So let's just talk about real quick how I go about matching a color. So starting from scratch with an empty cup and just sort of judging by what my eyes see by looking at the figure, I'm thinking my base color will be an ochre brown. It's a tannish color with a hint of yellow in it, and I think this will be a good starting point to sort of build off of. By itself, it's too yellow, but to kind of balance that yellow out, I'm going to mix in some dead flesh, and then to enhance the brown tone a little bit, I'll mix in a little bit of leather brown. And once I get the mix to where I think it'll be good, I'll test a little dot on the figure I'm trying to match, and then I'll dry it with my heat gun to see how it looks dry. And because this is acrylic paint, you can just wipe it off with some water and a paper towel once you get an idea of how the color blends in. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I think I'm ready to go in and do a test coat on the little para. But before I do that, I'm going to give the figure a base coat in dead flesh, just to kind of cover the plastic, and this will provide, the underbelly color that I can play off of later on in the repaint. So I'll just drop some of the paint we mixed into the airbrush, and I'll thin it down with a couple of drops of water. And I'm going to apply a couple of thin coats and then dry it, and then compare it to the adult to see how close I got. So here's the Parasaur with 3 coats laid down, and I think that's about as close as I can get it. I'm pretty happy with the tone and the shade of the skin, and I think it'll blend in even better once we get the rest of the colors put on. So the first color we're going to tackle is the orange stripe along the back. I'm going to grab some silly putty and mask off both sides of the body to prevent any overspray and to kind of help give me a nice, clean line on either side. So I was just going through my selection of colors, and the one that I found that is the closest to the orange stripe on the back is Army Painter's Dry Rust. And fortunately, this one kind of works right out of the bottle. It was, however, just a hair too bright once I started to put it down, so I did dull it a little bit with a drop of Vallejo Sepia ink, and that seemed to do the trick to kind of get it to the right shade to match the one on the adult. Next color to go down will be the brown stripes along the back, and for that I'll be using Vallejo Leather Brown right out of the bottle. The white label bottle is a darker leather brown than the Vallejo Game Color version that I normally use, which is a lighter, so keep that in mind if you're painting along and you have the lighter color leather brown. That will not match. You want to make sure that you've got the white labeled bottle, and that'll be a close enough match right out of the bottle without having to mix any colors around. So this is pretty straightforward. We're just going to be mimicking the patterns on the back of the Parasaur. So I've got the paint in my wet palette, and I'll grab a fine tip brush and go in and lay down the stripes. Now that these stripes on the back are done, I'm going to go in and paint the top of the head and the little horn doodad thing that it's got. Now on the Hammond Collection figure, the brown used on the head is different from the brown used on the stripes. So I just grabbed some Vallejo charred brown for that, and I'm just going to carefully block in the horn section. You know, doing matching repaints can be tricky at first, especially when you're really just trying to figure out matching the colors. But once you get the colors down, it, essentially becomes a 3D coloring book, and you're basically painting by numbers, and it's actually really fun kind of seeing it all come together. So before I do the stripes on the arms and legs, I'm going to grab some bone white, and I'm going to knock out that underside real quick just to fade in and tie the top and bottom together. I'm also going to drop that fade onto the back of the thighs like the Hammond Collection figure has. So the adult has 5 stripes on the back of each thigh and 6 stripes on each arm. So we'll just mimic that pattern with the brown that we used on the back stripes. Again, the paint is in the wet palette and it's nice and thin, so I'm just going to grab a fine tip brush and knock them out. So for the white stripes running down the back, I'm going to mix bone white with dead flesh because the stripes on the Hammond Collection figure aren't pure white. They're sort of like an off-white color with like a slight hint of yellow. The bone white is going to provide the off-white shade that we need, and then the dead flesh will give it that hint of yellow. So I've said it before, but white is a pain to paint by hand, and it does have the tendency to have a chalky finish if applied too thick and not thinned down enough. So keep that white paint thinned down and apply several thin layers at a time, and you will get a nice smooth streak-free finish. So we are at the home stretch with just a few paint apps left to do. The adult has these odd screen printed speckles along both sides, so I think the best way to go about that will be just applying some random dots with some dark rusty orange. I'm using Vallejo Model Air Dark Rust, but really any rusty brown will work. So just moving up to the head on the adult, you can see he's got some more screen printing around the eyes. Now I'm not going to worry about doing that on the little one, but I did repaint the eyes on this one a long time ago. So I'll just do the same colors as this one on the little guy. Just an orange eye with a black dot and a white light catch will be enough to give a little pop of life to the eyes. Last thing to do is paint the claws, and for that I'm just gonna paint them black like the adult version. And you want to be careful here because the last thing you want to do is like sneeze and smack a big black streak of paint up the side of the figure, and trying to clean that up will be a nightmare. So just hold your breath and carefully go in and cut the claws in. And that is it. We made it to the end, and the paint apps are all done, and the last thing to do is seal it up with some matte varnish, and this little guy is done and he's ready to join the rest of the herd here at the compound. So as always, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful or inspiring in some way, shape, or form. If you give this one a shot or you do any repaint, remember to tag me in your photos over on Instagram at the Jurassic Park Compound, because I'd love to see your work and share it in my story. For more Jurassic related content, you know where to find it. Links will be in the description box below. You guys take care, and I'll see you around the compound.